Let's talk about solving quadratics with the square root method. In this equation right here, I have a quadratic, which is given me by this exponent of 2 right here. There's a couple different ways I could attack this. I could expand this expression, 6x plus 4 times 6x plus 4, but that would get much more messy and complicated than it needs to be. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to isolate this factor right here, this 6x plus 4 squared. I'm going to do that by first subtracting 6 from both sides of this equation. Doing that will give me 2 times the 6x plus 4 equals 50. Now, squared. Now what I'm going to do is divide both sides by 2. Dividing by 2 does not ever affect the stuff inside the parentheses and affected by the exponent here. It's only going to cancel that 2 right there. But I also obviously have to do this to the other side of the equation. This gives me 6x plus 4 squared equals 25. Now that I have this squared part isolated, what I'm going to do is apply the square root to both sides of this equation. The square root cancels out this square right here. They're inverse operations of each other. And I'm going to get just 6x plus 4 over here. But every time I apply a square root to an equation, in order to cancel out a square like this actually happens anytime I apply an even root radical to both sides of an equation. I get this plus or minus on the other side. This would be plus or minus 5 because the square root of 25 is 5. In other videos, we'll go into depth on why we get this plus or minus. It's really just important to remember now, anytime you apply a square root to both sides of an equation, you get this plus minus. This represents two different equations. It represents 6x plus 4 equals 5 and 6x plus 4 equals negative 5. And I'll solve both of those right here. For this equation, I'll just subtract 4 from both sides to get 6x equals 1. Divide 6 from both sides to get x equals 1/6, giving me my first solution. My second solution will be here from subtracting 4 from both sides. I'll get 6x equals negative 9. Divide both sides by 6 to get x equals negative 9/6, which can be reduced to give me x equals negative 3/2. Like we expect from quadratic equations in general, I do have two solutions. The first one here is 1/6 from the first version of this equation, and then I also got negative 3/2 from the second version. Just a quick recap. What we first did was isolate this part of the equation that was squared with these two steps. Then what we did, we applied the square root. Importantly, when we apply the square root, we always get that plus or minus right here. That's a really important piece. And then finally, we solve the two equations that were presented to us.